Now, I did my breakdown on Shedeur Sanders, and look, he didn't have a good game. And we could talk about all that stuff with Shedeur and what he needs to show in his next start. But the worst thing about the Browns offense yesterday wasn't Shedeur, okay? It was the Browns run blocking. It was pretty awful. Or at least it felt like it was awful from watching the results. Like, the Browns run game has been pretty pitiful for much longer than I think people are willing to admit and be comfortable with, right? But even in some of the latter years of Nick Chubb, the run game efficiency just wasn't there. And that's the biggest concern I have going forward with the brain trust of this offense when it comes to developing this, which is the lack of anything interesting coming from this Cleveland Browns run game. We'll talk about what I mean going forward, what this could mean for the coaching staff, and more importantly, what this means for the personnel, and is the run game stuff just personnel related as far as the offensive line is concerned. We're going to go through that. We're going to look at some plays here. We're going to look at all Quincy Judkins runs to see what's going wrong in them. But before I do that, got to thank my sponsor, Sleeper. Real quick, just want to let you guys know Sleeper has a new offer here. They're offering a free $20 entry, no deposit required. And also, if you're a first-time user, you also will receive a 100% match on up to $100 when you use the promo code Worst Take. Again, $20 free, no deposit required. Plus, first-time users also receive a 100% deposit match up to $100. Join Sleeper. All right, so let's look at this run game here. It was pretty pathetic for the Cleveland Browns. I think they got like 24 yards rushing. It's pretty bad. Some of this is because they were running in bad situations. Like, this is just never a situation you're going to really win from. An obvious run situation, you're backed up in your own end zone. This, if I remember correctly, is because of a bad kickoff return that the Browns let up on special teams, which turned into a stop from the defense, but then it forced a punt, and that punt got downed at the 1 yard line. So another example of how special teams can really screw you up in more ways than one, right? Because we only really highlight special team snafus when they result in touchdowns and field goals, but we don't talk about stuff like this that hamstrings your offense until they have a 7-0 deficit or a 3-0 deficit. So this is a result of that, and it's very hard to do anything here. But what I would like to point out is, for as much bullshit as the Cleveland Browns love to do here when it comes to short yardage situations, and when I say bullshit, I mean bullshit. The Browns will have Aiden Huntington play fullback. The Browns will bring in an extra offensive lineman to play fullback. The Browns will have nothing but offensive linemen on, no tight ends. Like, the Browns will do a bunch of bullshit in short yardage situations. They'll take the quarterback off the field, go to wildcat. They'll run a reverse with the wildcat. They'll bring out a tight end to do a quarterback sneak. When I say they do a lot of bullshit in short yardage, I'm not saying that all that stuff is inherently bad, but they're doing a lot of gimmicks in short yardage. And my concern is that they're doing these gimmicks, and one, these gimmicks aren't successful, and two, the reason they're pathetic in short yardage and they resort to all these gimmicks in short yardage, I think is pretty simple. It's because they can't win in short yardage because they're a very, very, very unpowerful offensive line. This sounds familiar. You probably watched my film breakdowns about the offensive line last year, where I did nothing but bitch and moan about how the Browns offensive line was severely lacking power. When you watch the Browns offensive line play, you don't see a lot of displacement by the offensive linemen, which means moving people out of gaps. There's not a lot of that happening. Hell, you saw in the Shedeur video that a giant screen opportunity for the Cleveland Browns got taken off the board because Joe Bitonio got blew up by a fucking safety. This is what they've been dealing with, man. This is where the problems lie. If you want to point to one thing that the Browns need to put on this offensive line next year is power. They don't look like they're unathletic. They can move around fine. They're weak as shit though. That's the problem. Like, I'm gonna boil this down to simple terms for everybody watching. They are just a unpowerful offensive line. A underwhelming offensive line when it comes to power. And the thing that drives me crazy is that they try to play power football. They try to power guys. They try to move people, bully guys. Like, that's their whole MO, is we're going to come out and we're going to play bully ball. They haven't bullied a soul this season. Not one soul has been bullied by the Cleveland Browns offensive line, but yet that is the MO. So when you get to short yardage stuff, the reason you're seeing all of this bullshit is not because it works, but because they need every advantage they could get to win on the line of scrimmage, because they are utterly incapable of being powerful enough to win on the line of scrimmage. And you're seeing it right here, right? 94 wins inside with 71. We're seeing Cam Robinson get beat by 50, who has two men on the wedge right now. Like, he has two guys on his shoulders. He is bench pressing two people, Joe Bitonio and Cam Robinson. And both these guys aren't doing the damn thing to displace him. You see that right here? Let me highlight that for you if you cannot see it. But watch 50 here. 50 is half the size of both these gentlemen, and he is still getting to the gap that he wants to because we cannot displace him. You could forget about displacing 97 with Luke Whippler. Look at this right here. Look at this. Win. Boom. Easy. Back. Out. That's not good, right? The Browns aren't displacing a single body in the run game. And it's usually a bad. Without Wyatt Teller, it's so much worse, man. I'm just being honest here. It's so much worse without Wyatt. Like, at least Wyatt is capable of doing that every once in a while. The Browns just very incapable of successfully displacing people in the run game. We're going to see another example here where Tevin Jenkins does a decent job of climbing to the second level, hitting in contact. If you watch my breakdown on Tevin, you would know that I think that he does a good job of hitting people in space. So there is that. That's very nice. But unfortunately, 9 is able to get into this gap and blow this up and run right through Luke Whippler. Also, Luke Whippler, head on a swivel. He doesn't find his lane to help on that play either. So no success. Again, we're seeing a pretty common motif pop up. The Browns' offensive line just lacks power. And they're pretty predictable, too, in how they like to run the ball. And they run the ball out of the same looks. They try to do the same stuff. It's just not very creative. Right here, they're trying to get away from having to block up the middle because they're not winning these battles. So at least they're doing something different, getting to their perimeter blockers. And that was more successful. At least Quincy Judkins freely gets out of the end zone here. But yeah, you're seeing the problem, right? In order to get space, we're basically having to run away from our offensive line instead of use our offensive line, which is a big problem here. Now, you might be able to say, hey, Quinshawn had a cutback lane here. You would love for him to see it. I would prefer him to get his ass out the danger grass, right? Early in the game, I don't want you trying to take a cutback lane and break this thing for 99. I just want you to do what has the least amount of chance of getting a safety here because you're pretty deep in that grass. And if you are wrong about that cutback lane, that could be a problem. But there is a lane there, but I think 50 has that cleaned up because he ends up beating this double team eventually, which I say way too often when we're talking about the Browns run game is somebody beats a double team. Let's continue. Let's continue. All right, so who makes the tackle? 93. 93's on KT Leviston. Let's watch what happens here. He just loses his rep. I mean, this isn't the worst rep in the world, but it's just not good. Right, so 68, you get a little bit of power going here. I think 74, Tev remains to be the only person doing anything positive on this offensive line. Joel just gets beat up, man, so often, dude. Look at Joel get beat up here in the middle of this play. He's just so cooked. He's ready to retire. It's okay. Is that a linebacker doing that to him? Yeah, it's a Mike linebacker doing that to Joel, man. How times have changed. Joel used to just be able to maul guys like that. But he can't do it anymore, right? His back injuries, everything else. He's just not Joel Bitonio anymore. He's a guy wearing 75, but it's not Joel. It's unfortunate. Because if Joel could maul that guy out the way, that linebacker, he could push that guy out the way. There is a lane here for him to go through, and then it's a one-on-one with that safety. And that's a big play, right? That's stuff that Nick Chubb used to take advantage of all the time. But Joe not being able to displace that linebacker on the second level, even though he gets a free climb here, right? Like a free climb to that linebacker. He just can't displace that guy anymore. And instead of that guy being driven out the gap here and Quinshawn being allowed to kind of run free and accelerate, that guy's right there in that gap and he makes the tackle. You add that on top of KT Leviston getting beat on the edge, and there's your problem. They need to get more powerful on the line of scrimmage. And honest to God, with a run scheme like the Browns like to run a lot of gap scheme. We could talk about left tackle, right tackle all we want. But if you want the run game to get better, they need to draft guards. Now, the good news is, from all I can tell from the people I listen to, they seem to think that this is a good guard class coming up. So there is help that you can go after. But if you're looking for guards, if you want the Browns to draft a guard, you want somebody who can move and who can hit at the guard position. You want to see a lot of pull and a lot of schmack out that guard, because those are the guards that the Browns need. That's why Joel aging the way that he has really, really hurt this team, and why Tevin Jenkins, when he gets proper support around him, it's actually not look bad. Now, Tevin Jenkins got hurt, and that's a thing that Tevin Jenkins comes with, is injuries. The guy's been injured every year of his career, so you can't really rely on Tevin Jenkins. But if Tevin Jenkins is your backup, you could get some guys in the draft to kind of be powerful and move. You're going to improve this run game, because that's what they're missing. Both their guards, and maybe Wyatt Teller can become this again with some help around him. But Joe Bitonio really losing that power, that ability to displace people, has been the number one driving force of why the Browns offensive line looks like how it does over the last 2 years. He just isn't that good anymore. We brought this up last year. You can pull up a 2024 film breakdown on the offensive line that I did. I'm probably complaining about Joe's lack of power and how his back is just not there anymore. And that's just what it is. He's just not Joe Bitonio. But so much of the Browns offense relies on Joe Bitonio being Joe Bitonio. It's like watching a team with an aging quarterback when I watch this run game, right? When Big Ben was retiring, I used to make this argument successfully with the Steelers that, like, him being there is going to hold you back more than anything when he's not Ben anymore, because you're still going to call the offense like that's Ben Roethlisberger. But the guy wearing the Ben Roethlisberger jersey is a shell of himself. The issue with Joe Bitonio not retiring is the Browns call this offense like Joe is still that dude. But he's not Joe Bitonio anymore. So you're just missing out on a lot of stuff that he's just not powerful enough to do. And I think that's a huge problem. They need to get more powerful at guard in a hurry. If Zach Zinter can be more powerful, I need to see that in the preseason next year. I understand you're not going to bench Joe Bitonio, and there's no reason to bench Joe Bitonio at this point. But Zach Zinter, if he could be more powerful, I need to see it. Wyatt Teller, if he could be more powerful, I need to see it, because that's the number one thing that they need. They need power on the offensive line. This offensive line lacks strength. Let's continue. Going to be a run play. And boom, linebacker right up the gap. What happens here? They get caught. Is that Gervon Dexter? 97. First of all, this is just good. This is just good nose tackle play, right? When people are like, no, it's a 3-tech. It's a defensive tackle. It doesn't matter. He's not going to do anything. He can't affect anything because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Let's be real about it. This is the kind of shit that 3-techs do that don't pop up on the stat sheet, but certainly should, right? 97 just destroys this run play right here by completely holding up both the guard and the puller, right? The center's pulling. He's supposed to lead block and get into this gap. And instead of doing that, Gervon Dexter, 97, I believe that's Gervon Dexter, just completely fucks that up by holding that center there. And what does that do? Open up a clean lane for 53 to make the play. Now, everybody watching at home is going to be like, oh my God, look at 53. That's an amazing play by that linebacker. He's so good. We should pay him a bunch of money. But the people who should be paying the money should be saying, nah, 97 did all the work there. That's big 97 doing all the work there, whooping ass here. Now, again, Joe Bitonio in his day, this wouldn't phase him, right? He would be able to drive or hold up a guy like this so that pull can be made and this run can be successful. That's the difference. This is what I keep saying, right? Joe Bitonio not being Joe Bitonio is hurting this team at this point because they still want Joel to be Joel. And I understand that. That's how you go out with a great player like Joe Bitonio, is you go out still believing he's Joe Bitonio, especially when he's wearing the same uniform he's always worn. So you get this block. He's not able to handle it. The center gets caught up here. This play dies. But if Joel were Joel, he'd be able to handle this. You could get the guard to pull out, and then you can run behind it. But since he's not that guy anymore, this gets blown up because the center has to stay and help. And because the center's not there, there's nobody to fill that gap. And that means that linebacker gets a free run, which means negative yards. Watch another run play here. They're going to motion here. Which means they're probably going to run towards that motion. And you just see how crowded it is immediately. And the lag, like, look how hard it is for the Browns to get any grass in the run game right now. They're pulling 74, right? They're pulling Tevin because he's the only one who can hit in space. They're pulling him. He's making contact here. But 44 is that Harold Fainin. He gets caught up in the mess. What is he doing? Is he motioning? He's motioning back. He gets caught up in the mess. He can't get to that end. It slows down. And then, was it 68 on 48? You got your left tackle in space, and he can't displace this linebacker. I mean, look at this, the size difference. We can't do anything. We can't move shit. We can't move shit. Look at this. Just not there. And because that's not there, he's not displaced, that run is a nothing burger. It's not rocket science to figure out why the run game has not been successful. It's almost never Quinshot Judkins' fault. It's the offensive line, right? Right here, they're going to run, nothing happening. Now, what happens here? Well, one, your left tackle completely just gets walloped here by 93. Just absolutely embarrassed here. Just climbs over him and swims through him. Just like butter, right? 72, KT Leviston. This is a tough job here, right? Because you got to come across and climb and help. I'm not going to be mad at 72 on this one. You can be mad at him if you want. This is really, really hard to do. I'm going to give him a break, right? Because this guy, he falls. Tevin does his job, stays on top of him, but that creates a really tough terrain for you to be able to travel across and then be able to, that's an acceptable reason to miss your your assignment. Like I get that. I'm going to be lenient towards that. I understand the struggles there. What happens with Cam here, I can't explain. He just gets cut through like butter. Like, yeah. I swear to God, he would have went slower if Cam wasn't there. Like, I think Cam just gives him momentum to go forward. Like, he propels the guy forward. He gets there. He gets to Quinshawn faster because Cam's there. Like, if there was nobody there, he would have a harder time because he would have nobody to propel himself against to explode up north with that. And it's crazy. But again, it's not insane to see what the problems are, right? And you're starting to see where the draft picks are probably going to be allocated. We're probably talking about DeJuan Jones playing right tackle again. And we're probably talking about a new left tackle and a new left guard. These two positions, they just have to be replaced. This right here. Center, you might be able to get a free agent here. And tackle, you might be able to get a free agent here. You're probably going to draft this player. And that player is probably going to be Wyatt Teller. And then this player at center, it could be another free agent. It could be a draft choice. It could be Luke Whippler. And this is going to be DeJuan and KT. Like, those two are going to hold down that position. But that's what I think is going to happen here. And that's what I think needs to happen here. All right, let's look at this run play. This one kind of gets beat for just a schematic reason here. They have a tight end on the edge. They're hoping that they can get to the gap before the tight end's man gets to the running back, and they're just wrong on that bet. So this is more of a schematic failure for a run play than a player failure. I just think this isn't drawn up well, which is another thing that you can complain about with the Kevin Stefanski offense, which is unfortunate because he used to be really good at this, right? Here's a run play to Quinshawn, and he's trying to make something happen here. But again, the Browns just aren't really moving bodies off the line of scrimmage here like you would want to. One, you got a tight end trying to handle 94. That's been a problem. He's going to be tough to handle that. Doesn't look like 68 is interested in giving that tight end much help here because he's trying to climb to the linebacker. But he climbs to the linebacker and he doesn't displace the linebacker. So the linebacker actually gets to the line of scrimmage. You got 97. And is that Joe Bitonio? Yeah, you got 97 giving Joe Bitonio a handful here. And then you got Luke Whippler doing a good job with that linebacker, displacing him a little bit. But you're just not making enough ground here for anything significant to happen on this run play. Just a lack of power. And when I say power, I know some people are going to be confused. I'm not talking about the concept, the run concept. I'm talking about just straight up not being strong. Right? 1st and 10 here. Looked like a false start. And that's funny because that's the first time I've seen this line get pushed all day. But it does look like a false start. Like, I guess it's a crazy good jump from Joel. And this is a really good rep from Joel, right? And this is what Joel used to do all the time. Just move guys off the ground. Look how Joel just moves this guy off the ground. You know, so this is a flash of like, you're getting old Joel here, right? Like, you're getting the old flashes of Joel. But unfortunately, this gap doesn't open up because 68, you know, he's getting his ass beat by this linebacker. Again, how many times are we going to point out offensive linemen losing ground to second level players or worse, third level players? You want to know what the problem is? That's the problem, right? 68, he can't open up this lane. He can't get that lane open. So Quinshawn has to cut around it. And there's just nothing there. If you get his ass, like Joe has gotten his ass all the way out there, there's a lane there. There's a big play that could be made. We've seen Quinshawn split those angles all the time, but we don't have the power. We don't have to, again, you're probably replacing this guy. You see what you do with center. You can hide center, but these two, you know, I would get a free agent. I would throw $25 million at Rashad from Green Bay to play my left tackle position and just get that fixed. I would put a second round pick at guard, maybe even a third or fifth round pick at center. And then you could put Wyatt Teller here, have him backed up by Tevin Jenkins. And then you could put DeWand and KT here and then, fix that that tackle position in the 27 draft. But you got to get more powerful, man. You just got to get more powerful than this. Yeah, this right here, the motion just didn't clear the linebackers like they wanted to, right? They wanted this motion to scare the linebackers into shifting out, and then this would create a cutback lane for Quincy. It didn't happen. Again, this is a schematic failure for the play, not necessarily a failure on the offensive line's part. Right? They thought that would move people, but look how little motion this motion has. And when I say the motion has no motion, I'm saying none of the players who are supposed to be afraid of this motion give a single fuck about this motion. Like, look, these are the guys who should be reacting to this motion. Watch all of these guys right here react to the motion. It's like it didn't even fucking happen. So the motion's not doing anything here, right? Like, I like motion, and I know people love to count how many plays had motion versus no motion as like some kind of metric for how advanced of an offense you are. You can run a ton of motion, but if nobody gives a fuck about it, it doesn't do anything. Like, look at this. Nobody cares. No, nobody cares. 9 is not looking for that. He's not going upfield. Nobody cares. Hell, 53, he's already going towards the ball. They don't care about the motion. All right, man. This is the last run play of the day. 1st and 10 on the Chicago 43. They're running out the shotgun. And I mean, like, I'm not really going to roast this guy. This brother is practice squad supreme. He's wearing like number 52 out there. Hey, this guy just got cut. Like, you know what I mean? This play didn't work because you ran it behind somebody who just got cut. And look, the guy got whipped. The guy got his ass beat. 50 absolutely demolished him. I cannot be upset at that, right? The reason I can't be upset is why would I expect more out of somebody who just got cut from the practice squad like 24 hours ago? That's what it is. We're lacking power. We need more power. You're looking at the draft and you're looking at guards, and I think you should look at guards because this team could use some guards with power. And I don't know what Zach Zinter has. Maybe he has something and they could use that. But boy, oh boy, do I want guys who can move ass on grass on tape. Show me that. Show me guys who can pull and move bodies in college football. And those are the guys that the Browns need to go after.